Alrighty, let's go ahead and let's make things simple here. Today we're going to talk about money and banks. When you think of money, a lot of times people think about credit cards, they think about debit cards, they think about cards. We also sometimes think about cash, okay? That cold, hard, sweet cash. And checks, everyone wants their check. Yeah, we want our paychecks. Even if it's direct deposit now, we still like having a check in the hand every so often, okay? We got our money. If we're going to talk about money, we can't not talk about the banks. The banks and the money go hand in hand, okay? So we got money, we got banks. Now, let's make it simple, okay? What is money? When you think about money, it has to have certain properties in order to be money. We can't just make anything into money, because it doesn't work out that way. It doesn't work very well. One of the properties we're looking for is a medium of exchange, okay? And we'll go more into that. Also, we got a shiny diamond here. Yeah, it has to be a store of value. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about the diamond. It has to be a store of value. And then a ruler, what's that talking about? What could that possibly be mean about? Well, it also has to be a standard, not store, a standard of value. Okay? Those are different. Store and standard are different. We'll go over those more. So what does a medium of exchange mean? Okay? What's the definition? What are we driving at here? To put it in the most simple terms possible, we accept it as payment. It's that simple. If you don't accept it as payment, it's not a medium of exchange. And so not all things are accepted as payment. Therefore, not all things can be money. Okay? So let's say you're buying a house. Pretty nice. You got a house out here. And let's say you go to the person like, hey, how about I try to buy your house in something other than regular money? How about how many chickens would it take to buy your house? Okay? Think about it. Would it be 1, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000? How many chickens would it take to buy a house? And then the most important question, who would want that many chickens? Are they going to accept it as payment? Okay. Store of value. Here we go. Will my money hold value in the future? Think about that now, everybody. Will it hold value? Okay. If eggs were money, how long would they hold value? Okay. If we were to make eggs into money, would we have some issues, some complications maybe? I'm going to give you some time to think about this. I'm going to draw a couple eggs here. Okay, there's one egg. I'm working on the second. If eggs were money, how long would they hold value? What issues might they have? Okay, because money is something we're always going to want to use in the future. You accept it now in hopes that you can use it in the future. Well, hopefully you thought about this for a bit. And let me just be quite honest with you. What happens when the eggs spoil? What happens if people no longer want eggs? They're going to have some value issues. All right? Now, standard of value. This one's huge for money, okay? Everything we do in life to a degree needs to be measured so we know if we're doing it right or doing it wrong, and we have an idea of where we're at and where we need to be. And when it comes to money, we got to be on the same standard. We got to be on the same scale, or we're going to have issues. And also that scale needs to make sense. All right, we can't have a crazy scale that just goes off into nowhere. We got to have a scale that makes sense so that we can actually have a good standard of value. Okay? So, can we measure it? Can we measure the value? So let's take a look at this again. Do you remember that question we had earlier? How many chickens would it take to buy a house? Imagine everything in chicken value. Everything in chicken value. That's right. Don't stop with the everything in chicken value. How many chickens would a car be? All right, you talked about a house last time. This time, how much would a car be? So let's slide on a little chicken here. How many of these chickens would it be to buy a car? And now imagine if every single item you bought had to be in chicken price. You're going to run into some issues trying to visualize this, right? How many chickens is everything going to be? I mean, it's just going to be hard. And also, think about this. What if you had an issue such as, how would you pay for something that is 2.5 chickens? Do I get the extra chicken? Do you get the extra chicken? Do we fight for the extra chicken? Or does something terrible have to happen to that extra chicken? Think about that. What are we going to do with this problem? Well, sorry, third chicken. We got to figure out some way to make this work. And we might have to do some splitting on this, okay? So let's move on. Now we know more about money. What did we do before money? Well, you got a good sample with all the chickens, basically, we're talking about. We used a barter system. And we literally traded chickens for everything. We traded horses for things. We traded cows for things. We traded things for things, services for services, and you had to hope people wanted what you have and that you had the amount that they needed. All right? And it was very tiresome. It was very hard. Transportation was hard for it. You didn't know about the value in the future. You had to make sure it didn't go spoil, and so you could save it in the future. And see, livestock worked out fairly good because at least they lived for a long time, so you could hold on to it. And then also, usually, they'd increase in value. But livestock really was it. I mean, we traded a lot of livestock in the early society. I mean, you look at cows, okay? A lot of early societies, they did a lot of valuation based on just how many cows would that be? How many cows is your land worth? How many cows is this worth? So, moving on. What is the money supply? We talked about money. Now, what is it when we have a group of money? What are we talking about, okay? Well, it is the money available for people to use. Very simple, okay? That's the money supply. Is it that simple, though? No, we're going to make it a little bit more complicated, maybe, but just more usable, okay? We want to group things up so we know how usable the money is, okay? How easy is it to use this money? And so we have different groups of money. We have M1, M2, and M3, and the M stands for money supply. M1 is the easiest, M3 is the hardest to use, okay? So M1 is all currency and transaction account. So that's like your checking account, okay? But the transaction account is special. It means it's on demand. You can use it when you need it, okay? So we're going to look at M1 being all currency here. So we got a nice dollar bill there. We got coins, that's right, and transaction account. So your debit card, not your credit cards. Credit cards not even money. We'll get onto that later. All right? And we'll get into why that is too, okay? Because a lot of people think it's money. A lot of people do, okay? But basically, it's just going to be checks and things you can use on demand, okay? It's on-demand money. So cash, currency, debit, checks. There you go. That's M1. And for it to be an actual transaction account, there can't be any requirements on it. You have to be able to have no time restrictions and get your money when you need it, okay? You have access to it now, okay? You don't have to go to the bank also to get it. You can just write a check or debit or whatever. It's just very, very accessible to you, okay? So how big is M1? Currency alone is 1.3 trillion, all right? 1.3 trillion in currency. That's a lot of currency. But it's not very much compared to all the accounts we have. Because just in M1 alone, 1.75 of it is transaction accounts. And that doesn't include M2 and M3. And once we get all those involved, then currency is very small. But M1 in of itself, 1.3 trillion currency, 1.75 in transaction accounts. Technically, there's 3 billion, that small amount, in traveler's checks. But M1 equals about 3.1 trillion, okay? That's our M1 money supply. This is the money supply that's pretty readily available for people to use, okay? And this affects us a lot. So again, let's go back. Do credit cards count as money? If you were listening, you would know this question, because I told you it earlier. But if I didn't, I'm going to tell you it again. That's right. Does this credit card count as money? Nope. The answer is no, okay? Credit cards are a loan. There is no money in the account. Credit cards are a payment service, okay? They are not money, as far as we're concerned. So what are M2 and M3? Okay, so we went over M1. M2 is just M1 plus small savings and time deposits, things you don't have readily you don't readily have access to, or there's restrictions on. Okay, and you're just not going to be able to spend them willy-nilly. No willy-nilly spending here. And then M3 is even harder, okay? Because M3 is M2 plus large time deposits plus large liquid assets. So those things are even harder to get to, and it's a lot bigger supply. So M2 is actually pretty big. M2 is about 14 trillion. Okay, that's how big M2 is right now. What about M3? We don't know. They stopped keeping track of it in 2006. Okay, it's no longer reported in the U.S. Other countries can report it. We didn't keep track of it anymore. So, do banks make money? All right. Do they make money? Yeah, banks are out for themselves. They're going to make money. In fact, their loans can add money to the money supply. Yes. That's right. The loans can add it to the money supply. And the only reason why the bank takes your money is because they're going to do something with it. The only reason they want your money, and they're going to give you a little approved application, yeah, because they're taking your money to give it to this person who just barely got a loan. And banks always have more accounts in deposit than there is money to cover on hand, okay, because they give out loans. Every dollar that is not backed up with money on hand is money the bank has technically created. It's part of the money supply. All right? It just is. If the bank doesn't have money to cover it and they've loaned it out, and yet they owe more than what they currently have on hand, that's created money. That's just the way it is. And the banks create a lot of it. Okay? But how much do the banks really create? Think about that for a minute. And also, why don't we have infinite money at this point? Why isn't there infinite money? Why don't we have infinite money in the money supply? Okay? Why doesn't it just keep going? Well, it's because banks have to use something. Okay? There's something that stops this from happening. And it's calculated. Very precisely, we calculate it. Okay? And they use it because they have to do it by law. And if they don't do it, they get into big trouble. Big trouble. Okay? We call this a reserve ratio. All right? By law, they have to use it. And it basically tells them how much money they're allowed to loan out for every dollar they have. Okay? That's it. It's that simple. The reserve ratio is how much money they need to have per dollar loaned. So let's say if the reserve ratio is 50%, then the bank can only loan out $2 for every dollar they have. It's that simple. So here we go. We got a bank. Reserve ratio is 50%. So right here is $1 we have, and that's going to be part of the reserve ratio. And then over here, that's what the bank's allowed to loan out at this point. $2 whole. Okay? Don't seem too bad. They only doubled the money. But is this really all that's going to happen? Is the system this simple? Obviously, if I'm asking these questions, it's not. So we got the reserve ratio here, but we're going to make it simple for you, though. And we got the loan over there of $2. Just how much money do banks create with loans? How much money? Well, one thing you got to realize, we have a system of banks. And money goes around in cycles. And so, if one bank's creating money, then another bank's creating money. It's all going to depend on the reserve ratio, but there's a lot of money that can be created. Okay? Let's get a little basic premise here. A high reserve ratio equals less money created, okay? Because they're forced to hold back. They're not allowed to. Even if they want to, they're not allowed to put more money out there, okay? So high reserve ratio, less money created, okay? A low reserve ratio, though, means they have a lot more loose spending time, okay? They can loan a lot more out. And they can put a lot more money into the system because they're not required to keep very much of it in their bank. All right? This isn't as secure, but they're allowed to do it if it's low. So let's calculate this, okay? let's calculate the money banks create. We're going to start with something simple. We will start with $100. $100 deposit. Okay, so right here, we got our nice little cash. Okay, $100. And this one, we actually use the European pound on this. Okay, and it's going to be 50. And 50, so we got 100 there. Okay. The reserve ratio is 20%. I'm just going to give you that. So reserve ratio is 20%. So if you deposit the $100, how much is going to be loaned out? Well, let's take a look at this. Well, you just do the math. It's that simple. You have to keep 20% of it. So they're loaning out 80. Right there is $80. That's step one. So the bank is in step one. The bank has already created $80. There's $100. They still have to. That's right. $80 what they have created, and they still have $100 they owe back to whoever first deposited that. Okay. And then that person deposits $80 into a bank. All right. You guys gonna see the trend that's going on here? So it's 80% of 80, $64. Okay. So now with just 2 steps, we got a deposit of $100. We created 80, and now we're creating 64. How much money are we going to end up creating on this? How much money is going to keep being created over and over on this? Okay. Well, just sit back and watch, because it's going to keep going. All right. So let's go to the next step. And then that person deposits $64 at a bank. What do we think that next bank's going to do? Well, they're also going to loan out what they can. 51.2. Okay, 20 cents. $51.20 for that loan. So, we go over here, and we do some more, and we loan it out. How long will this keep going for? Well, let's do another step. This is just to sink it into your mind just how far money can kick around in the cycle, okay? Because obviously if that person does it, then that person can do it, and they're going to loan it out again. The next bank's going to loan again. It's going to be $40.96. How many steps could this possibly go for? Then that bank loans it out. That's right. And right here, here's your more and more money. Okay? I think by now you're probably getting the idea of this, aren't you? This can go on for quite some time. And it does go on until you hit about 0. So how much total was created by then when it hits almost 0? Do we have to always calculate every single step of this and go forever? How much money did the bank create? How much money was created by that $100 deposit? How much? We have our bank here. How much were they able to generate into the money supply? Think about this for a bit. How much could they possibly have created? We know the first step was about 80%. Okay. We put all the steps together. It's going to be a lot. And you can just use this simple shortcut. Okay. All you do is you take the money multiplier, and you're going to end up timesing it by what you get. The money multiplier is this. 1 divided by the reserve ratio. That's it. So if the reserve ratio, let's say, is 20%, 1 divided by 20, the money multiplier is 5. Okay? Then use the money multiplier, and you'll times that by our initial deposit. So 5 times 100 equals 500. That is how much money could be added to the money supply. It's that simple. But does this always happen? No, that's how much potentially could happen. The answer is no. That's the potential. What could stop it? What could stop this from going over so many times in a cycle? Well, let's say people have to redeposit the money. They could just keep it at home. Okay? One person could just keep it at home. He could break the cycle. What else could go on? Well, let's look and see what all parts of the cycle there were. You had people redepositing money. Also, you have to have people have to take out the loans. Okay? In order for it to continue. Where else could the cycle break down? Well, it can also break down with the banks themselves. Maybe they just don't want to loan out that much. Maybe they don't feel secure. The banks have to be willing to lend and feel there's people worth lending to. Okay? So if banks create money, how does this affect me? That's all you've been asking. This is it. An increase in the money supply equals more inflation and more people buying things. It's an increase in demand. That's how simple it is. Okay? Thanks for watching. Hopefully you learned something. Remember, keep it simple. That's all it is. Okay? If you need to rewatch this, rewatch it, learn it. You guys take care.